Okay. All right, everyone. Welcome to Giddm Games. We have some special guests with us today. We have Nat and we have John. Now, for those, I think several of y'all probably know Nat by now. They've been on our show before, and then John, I believe you're kind of new to this podcast in particular, but you've been behind the scenes with several TCG, I guess you'd say, projects in the past. And I don't want to leave Kurt out either. So Kurt's joining us here today as well. He is the resident, I guess you'd say, like, TCG scholar at this point. You're just a wealth of TCG knowledge.
I'll agree with that, man. I try and learn every trading card game that I can because it's fun and I like playing trading card games. Someone recently asked me, they're like, "Oh yeah, let's been thought about playing some Commander. We've got like a couple of decks for you." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I have a couple of Commander decks." And they just replied back, "Do you play every card game?" Yeah, I play every card game. So
yeah,
I'm excited to learn about this one as well. It looks really cool.
Yeah, and we'll be covering their game called Obscurids, and I'll let y'all introduce it as well. And just to further frame this, having Kurt here is actually really great too, because it's always good to have like a point of reference when it comes to all of these games and being like, you'll find a lot of times with TCGs, there's like a shorthand where it's like, oh, okay, so like this is sort of like a Magic thing, or okay, this is kind of like a Pokemon thing, and nothing's ever one-to-one, but it is always fair to draw inspiration and have that shorthand, especially for onboarding new players. And in this situation, I am the new player. So anyways, let's see. Nat, you've spoken with us before. John, why don't you kick us off? Tell us a little bit about your game, some of the inspiration, and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'll start with my background. John Conbeer, for everybody that doesn't know me. It's probably a lot. Like you said, I usually work behind the scenes. Most of your MetaZoo probably people know me because I was the lead working on Cryptic Class for however long that project was. But before that, I was the lead engineer behind Storybook Brawl, which you might have heard of if you heard of Sam Bankman-Fried and the game he wouldn't stop playing. And then before that, basically was just an engineer for a long time, working on various games and ad rolled creative stuff and jumping all over the place. So that's my main background. And then since the MetaZoo stuff fell apart, I decided to finally start my own company because I was done dealing with CEOs that bankrupt their own company, basically. It was weird. It happened twice, but so started my own company. And then, I've always wanted to make a TCG for like probably 20 years, and this finally felt like the right time to do it because I could finally make a business plan out of it. And I can explain that later about like what that is. But yeah, it just basically like everything fell into place, and it's like we wanted to do this for so long. It's finally the right time, and let's do it. So
yeah, I think now is a great time. I think with MetaZoo, MetaZoo's failure or collapse or whatever has left somewhat of a vacuum in the market. And I kind of have I have another channel that's not Giddm Games, where it's me just being me, and I'm a little bit more unhinged. But for the sake of decorum and everything, I'll just say, like, there was, despite MetaZoo being as small as it was, there actually was a pretty decent player base. And what I'm getting at in this respect is that I think there are players that are still looking for the next thing to play. And even the players that had played MetaZoo would very likely say that, okay, there was room for improvement, right? And
good way to put it.
yeah. Again, I'm being the non-unhinged version. I'm trying, and I think that what y'all have to share with us today, kind of feels a little bit of a evolution of that in some regard, and touching on a lot of the gameplay stuff that people, I think, love and enjoy. So, with that said, Nat, why don't you give us a little bit of background about yourself? Tell us a little bit about, Obscurids, how you came on board, and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, my name's Matt. mainly. I helped start like Past Society. I was focusing on MetaZoo mostly. Not involved in the cardio, all the tournament software and stuff like that. For a lot of mini games. Me or John started working there to work on the Cricket Clash contract that we got. And since I knew all the raising stuff, I was working closely with him to help develop that game. Yeah, so just always loved playing trading card games and reading rules. How stuff is actually supposed to work. So yeah, after like MetaZoo collapse and everything, Don asked me if I'd be interested in starting a trading card game company with him, like creating the employees. But yeah, that's kind of where it evolved and where we went. So I've been working on this for I think so like February, March.
Okay, so y'all been in development for a while then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you tell us what version of the game we will be seeing?
I mean, if you're talking about number, it's like 22 right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we're pretty far. Yeah, lots of iteration. Iteration is kind of like how I operate. So just make a thing, try it, iterate, and so.
Of course, yeah. With a tech background, right? It's like, are we on the alpha? Are we on the beta? Are we on the
I would
zeta?
say
I don't know.
between alpha to beta, somewhere in there is probably how I describe it. Like the core rules are pretty locked down, and then we're kind of just like tweaking numbers and tweaking like second order things of like, oh, how do we solve for like first player advantage and things like that. But like the core like combat's like pretty much locked in. Like how you play, how you draw cards, like that's all been pretty solidified for the last few months, and now we're just kind of making it better. And we just had our development team start, which if you're not familiar with that from like TCG development, basically you usually have a design team and a development team. So we just handed off pretty much all the designs to the development team. So they're kicking us back like all the fixes, and there's basically probably 100 years of card game development experience on the development team. So
wow,
they're really good.
So when it comes to, I guess, development, things like that as well, you've clearly taken in a lot of feedback. And do you think that your process, obviously it sounds iterative, but is it kind of coming from the top down in your game design? Or are you sort of just willing to adapt based on the feedback?
I have a clear vision and like design goals, but how those goals get like actually applied can change based on the feedback.
Okay.
So like a big example is like there's no blocker step in our game. It's kind of more like Hearthstone combat where you attack, you target the thing, resolves. For a very, very long time, and the reason for that is I really want it to have like an attacker advantaged kind of game, because if you're playing with Commander, it's a very defensive kind of, you're all just staring at each other down until like someone fires. So I really wanted like an offensive attacker advantage game so that there's like always something happening. And then so for a long, long time, I got like the feedback of like add a block step, add a block step, add a block step. Like I want to be able to like choose blockers as a defender. And I didn't do that because it like completely slows the game down and like validates my design goals. But we did add like things that allow you to be more defensive in your play. And that's solve the issue in that way. So
okay. Very cool. One thing I also wanted to touch on a little bit too is maybe the game's format. So how would you, again, it's not one for one, but would you describe your game as more of like a commander type game, or why don't you walk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, so the language I've been working on is a party-sized TCG built from the ground up for that. So it's kind of the multiplayer genres, it's kind of weird to me that like hasn't really been explored very much in the space. There's been like 20 TCGs that came out in the last couple years, and they're all 1v1 centric games. But Commander is actually, pretty sure, the most popular way to play card games right now. But Commander was also developed as an add-on to a game that never intended it to be that, and then like love Commander, but has its flaws, right? So the core idea is like, let's take the idea of a multiplayer format and like build it just from the ground up. Like the game is purely like every design decision is to make the best possible multiplayer TCG. So not to say that you can't play it 1v1 because we're working on that too, but it's supposed to be like, the very obvious thing is like there's no player elimination in our game. Like there's no I got knocked out 10 minutes and then I we'll go watch a show while y'all's games finishes. So right? None of that. So you're always in the game.
Yeah, my thing with Commander is always let's pretend nobody's trying to win, and then somebody gets ganged up on.
Yeah.
And then once that person is ganged up on, then you just sit there for 20 minutes while you wait for everyone else to finish having fun, and you just scroll on your phone. So that's good. I like hearing that. Now, you guys mentioned that it's like a 4-player format. Are there plans to expand it to just a head-to-head? Is it meant as more, and I'm going to give you a couple of questions to answer. So is it meant as purely a 4-player, or is there just a head-to-head, a 2-player format, something you guys have ever considered? And is that just really what you want to be? How competitive do you want to make this? Is it more of a tabletop, or is it a collectible card game? Is it a competitive card game?
Mm-hmm.
Where have you? I know we're early, right? You guys haven't launched a a Kickstarter or anything like that yet, but I'd love to hear just sort of the vision. Like what you envision for it.
Yeah. So high level notes. We have lots of plans. But to drill into a little. Let's see. We definitely have plans for 1v1. Logan, if you're from MetaZoo R&D, is on our team, and he just literally Friday he just wrote up the 1v1 rules for us. Where we're trying to make it different than the 4v4 to give it its own like kind of spice. So there's kind of more of a unique way to play rather than just like worse Commander. So we're working on some special rules for 1v1 that makes it cool. And then let's see. The competitiveness, so we'll have organized play, but I do think like more of that kitchen table magic is like definitely where like the dream place to play Obscurids to me is like you're at a brewery or a coffee shop with your friends and you're all having a beer, having a good time. We do want to have competitive events, but I would think of them more as like the Command Zone, Command Fest kind of stuff.
Okay.
Like so everybody's there, they're all having a good time. There's still like some competitive to-ness, but like there's plenty of games on the market for the competitive player, and we're the game on the market for the social player, basically. How I think about it. So,
and I like games like that. It's not all about we've spoken on the podcast previously, or at least I have, about like the EV of card games, right? And me trying to extract the most value out of a card game that I get into. But it's okay, guys. I like playing games for fun too, I promise. And I think this would slot into that very well. Do you guys have plans for everything to be released at once as sort of like maybe a bundle, or is it going to be on like and again, if you don't have the answer to it, that's fine. I'm just curious of me thinking like, can I purchase the whole thing at once and then I can play everything that you guys have to offer? Is it going to be like a booster pack, situation, or a theme deck situation, or an expansion situation where I would purchase a couple of, commander decks, so to speak, Obscurid decks?
Yep.
What plans do you guys have for that?
Yeah, so it is 100% a collectible card game.
Okay.
But we do have plans for, I'm calling it like the party box right now. So it'd be like a box where you get 5 pre-built decks. It's kind of designed for, like you're saying, like I just buy this. You play with the friends. If you just buy that box should be great. You'll have a blast. But then if you want to go farther, like we have your booster boxes, your booster packs, all that stuff. So we're definitely trying to have different levels of entry, I guess is how I would say it. Like if you just want to like come here and play as like a board game, you're great. But if you want to go farther, we have that for you too. So.
Oh yeah, that's the stuff for me.
I was gonna say that's the model right there. That's the one.
Because I'm honestly more of a tabletop gamer. I play TCGs, but I prefer tabletop format stuff like Seal. I don't know what it is like, and it's a lot of people love collecting. No slight towards that, and I think that's its own like vertical or whatever fancy, business talk. But I just want to play. I just want to play the cards. Typically, I mean, we say bar locals. It's usually just Kurt and I playing against each other. But I just like essentially playing dead or sealed formats where it's just limited. And it's like, okay, these are your box. This is the box that you have, and you got to do something cool with it. And then we just play cards. The Pokemon Draft Cube is a great example of that. I think that we were running for a while there. Maybe we'll see that this week.
I kind of had a little envision where we talked about it. Like, since there's 5 decks, if you have your little party of 4 people, you all play one round, and then you eliminate the winning deck and bring in like a deck that wasn't played, and you kind of all switch. And you can just like all play in the deck and just keep rotating on like that for as long as you want.
Yeah, see, I love that. That works really well for me. And again, there's ways to appeal to everybody's sensibilities. It's just, and okay, I'll say I was trying to skirt around it, but the biggest annoyance for me is like Sorcery's newest set's coming out, and they're not doing release decks or like sealed within their next set, and that's well and good. Like, some people want to just crack boxes and collect and then trade and do their constructed deck, but I don't really have enough time to sit around with constructed as much as I used to. So for me, I just want to get like a sealed deck, shuffle up, play, and have a couple beers.
Yep. I mean, my hot take here is I'm pretty sure, like, I think most starter decks and intro decks in the TCG industry are awful.
Yeah, they are. I think they're supposed to drive you into their booster, like the higher tier, right? Like, they want you to get a taste with the theme deck that's just garbage. Maybe there's one card in there that's good, and then you're like, oh, you got to buy the main set now.
Yeah. My vision is that you should have a blast from the start. So I think our starter decks are already better than anything in the market, and there's still ways to go. So
yeah, I mean, in an ideal situation, your starter deck's really fun and it's enjoyable to play on its own, and then your auxiliary product just augments it to make it maybe better, but not just like, hey, I got 2 cards in here that are good.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to play Lorcana with my niece, and it didn't go well. So